Have you been scooping up cheap CDs and want to buy a new CD player, but not sure what to buy without blowing your budget? Do you want to buy something new and just avoid the gamble of buying a used one at the thrift store? Or just get something more exciting than a cheap DVD player? Have you been frustrated by the high prices of brand new CD players when shopping online? Hi there, my name is Aaron and I've reviewed a lot of CD players and transports this year, ranging from $40 to $1,400. And one of the most common comments I get is people saying, well, too bad they don't make brand new cheap CD players anymore. Well, that may no longer be the case, thanks to the SMSL PL100 that costs just $105. A simple compact player that promises great sound for a budget price. I'm excited to put this player through its paces because if it works properly and sounds great, I think it just might help make CDs popular again. I think there are two valuable methods to test the PL100 based on the most common feedback I receive. Now, the first thing people always ask is, why would you buy a brand new CD player when you can just use a cheap DVD player to play your CDs instead? That's a good question. Let's first compare the PL100 to a $40 DVD player I have on hand and see how the SMSL sizes up to the cheapest new unit I could find online. Then let's compare the PL100 against this $380 Yamaha CD player that I bought off Amazon, because the other comment I always get is that new CD players are simply too expensive. By comparing the PL100 to both a cheap DVD player and a higher priced CD player, we should be able to figure out which works best for you and your budget so we can get you playing your CDs in the best manner possible. This affordable Megatech DVD player can also be used as a CD player and costs just $40 on Amazon, while the PL100 is $105. Both units come with remote controls. The DVD player comes with your standard power supply, but the PL100 does not. It simply powers on using USB power with provided USB cables, which was easy to connect to my power supply here and even my laptop. You could connect a different power supply if you have one on hand, but make sure it's the proper rating. I know not including this traditional power supply helps SML offer this unit at a lower price, but it still takes a little getting used to. Each unit has both RCA and digital outputs, but the PL100 has one extra digital output with optical. Keep in mind the HDMI output on the DVD player is for video, not audio, so we shouldn't take that into account. And you might have noticed, but the PL100 has a headphone output on the rear of the unit, which can power up to 32 ohm headphones, which is a feature I did not expect to see. Honestly, this DVD player feels very cheap. Made mostly from plastic and is so lightweight that when I try to push the buttons on the front, it moves away from me. I find it rather annoying to use. However, the SMSL PL100 is made of a full aluminum alloy housing, and honestly, it has a nice weight to it at just under 3 pounds. It just doesn't feel as cheap as the DVD player. The DVD player uses a drawer mechanism, while the PL100 is slot loaded. One benefit of this slot loading mechanism is that you can actually operate the unit on its side, which some might find beneficial. The DVD player has a USB input on the front of the unit for playing music from a thumb drive, while the PL100 does not. Keep in mind that the USB on the rear of the PL100 is for power only. I get a lot of questions about how these players handle scratch discs, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of Torch CDs on hand, but this copy of Nevermind has seen better days and the PL100 played it just fine. Both players handle the same CD formats, which is CD, CDR, CDRW, and MP3 CDs. But at this price point, these are not playing SACDs. Let's talk about sound performance next. The PL100 uses the Cirrus Logic CS43131 DAC chip, and I could not locate any information on the DVD player DAC, which is a common issue with budget gear sold via Amazon. When listening to both units connected via the RCA output to my HH Scott tube amp, I preferred the sound of the PL100 over the DVD player. The DVD player sounds fine, but at times it can be a little thin, while the PL100 rounds out the sound, especially providing more bass. I was also able to hear better detail in the upper frequencies with the PL100. Now, when I connected both of these CD players via their digital outputs to the same DAC, I really could not hear that much of a sound difference to prefer one over the other. One important thing to keep in mind is that the cheap DVD player has an issue with gapless playback, where it inserts small silences between the tracks during playback, which can be annoying when listening to a live album or say something like Dark Side of the Moon. Now, this is where things get really interesting with the PL100. If you put the CD in and do not touch any of the skip track buttons, it will play through without any gapless playback issues. However, if you skip tracks during playback, it will suddenly insert those gaps in between the tracks until you remove and reinsert the disc. This is not an issue for me because I normally just insert a disc, hit play, and walk away until it plays through. But for some people, this might not be a reason to buy the PL100. For me, when considering both of these players for CD playback only, I personally would lean towards the PL100 over the DVD player because for just $65 more, I'm getting a better built unit that sounds a little cleaner and tighter with more digital outputs and a unique option to store and operate. That being said, I do think it's fair to argue that the PL100's lack of a power supply makes the DVD player more desirable for beginners, but once you get past that hurdle, the PL100 was an easy addition to my setup. Whenever I make these videos comparing two players, I always like to make myself available via email to answer any questions you might have. Now, the way you can email me directly is simply by signing up to my email list, which is the link in the first pinned comment of this video. Just subscribe to that email list. Once you confirm, it will email you my personal email address where you can email me any question you might have. So consider signing up for that email list today. This Yamaha CD303 player is $380 on Amazon, and whenever I suggest this player as an option for people on a budget, they often think this price is too high. So I'm interested in determining if the PL100 can now be my go-to budget option to recommend going forward. Let's compare them both and see. Just like the DVD player, this Yamaha has a standard power connection, so the issue with the PL100 being USB powered without a supplied adapter is still relevant here. Both units have RCA outputs and both have two digital outputs, coax and optical. The build quality on both of these units is equal in my opinion, but again, the Yamaha has a drawer mechanism while the PL100 is slot loading. And obviously the PL100's smaller footprint and ability to use in a vertical position means it will be easier to fit into your system. It also means the PL100 makes for a great desktop solution for anyone who doesn't have a traditional sized stereo component setup. One more note, and I've yet to set this up in the menu option, but the Yamaha's display has a 3-mode CD text display that shows the CD title, the artist name, and the title of the track, while the PL100 just shows track number and timing. One thing to note, I found the loading time on the PL100 to be considerably faster than the Yamaha, which seems to take its sweet time loading, probably due to the drawer mechanism. Faster loading is always better for me. The Yamaha also has a USB input on the front for music files, while the PL100 again does not. However, if you want to use headphones, the PL100 has that rear connectivity, while the Yamaha has no headphone at all. And if you value well-built remote controls, the Yamahas will make you happy, while the plastic SMSL remote will most likely leave you disappointed. And just like I mentioned with the DVD player, the Yamaha and the PL100 both can play CD, CDR, and CDRW, and MP3 CD, but no SACD. When it comes to sound, the Yamaha website doesn't specifically say what type of DAC is used within the 303, while the PL100 does with the Cirrus Logic mentioned earlier. I've always found Yamaha products to have a more laid-back, softer sound presentation, and that's what I heard when using the RCA outputs on the 303. I actually like this for CDs because sometimes they can be a little bright. The PL100 sound is more detailed with a slightly larger sound stage. I can't tell you one sounds better than the other because I don't know what gear you are using, and I honestly don't know what your personal music listening preferences are. But what I can tell you is that the PL100 at just $105 didn't sound inferior to a CD player at 3 times its price, which is a very positive thing. And again, just like when comparing it with the DVD player, connecting the PL100 and the Yamaha via their digital outputs to the same DAC, there's not a big enough sound difference for me to tell you that one is better than the other. Lastly, and this is important, I don't have any gapless playback issues at all with the Yamaha, which is great. Keep in mind, we've still got those quirky gapless playback issues with the PL100 that I mentioned when describing it and comparing it with the DVD player earlier. So what does all this mean? Well, for me as someone who has a YouTube channel who gets asked a lot to recommend gear, it means that I can comfortably offer both of these player options, and folks who don't mind spending the $380 can get the more traditional Yamaha player and know they are getting a quality unit. But what's exciting to me is that if someone is on a really tight budget and doesn't want to bother buying a used CD player or a cheap DVD player, I feel comfortable offering the PL100 as a budget option at just $105. Not only will they get a CD player now for a great price, but it will also offer them the digital connectivity they need if in the future they want to experiment with changing the sound signature by adding an external DAC. So now when people comment on my videos saying, "Too bad no one is making brand new cheap CD players anymore," I can now suggest they look into the PL100. I also think the SMSL offering a player at this price means that it will make CD collecting that much more popular because there's now a great player to match the great pricing of buying CDs. Some of you might now be wondering, how does the PL100 compare to the $500 PL200T transport that's also offered by SMSL? Well, that's a good question, and to be honest, I want this video to focus more on helping newcomers buy a cheap CD player like the PL100 without confusing them on the process of buying a CD transport instead and needing an external DAC. Once you start talking about the PL200T, you begin getting a lot more connectivity options, a different top-loading design, and of course the fact that you have to connect it to an external DAC, which might be too much for people just getting into buying CDs. But now, if you're interested in learning more about a CD transport and how it operates differently than a CD player, then be sure to check out this video that I just recently released, which will explain the pros and cons of each and try to help decide which one is best for you.